Hey Chris, so what are you working on now?
Well, I'm kind of coming up with one of my combos that I use for one of my tour events up in Lake Erie up out of Ohio and stuff. And a lot of the fish we fish for are walleyes in the springtime of year that are right after spawn on the reefs. They come in from the Great Lake up there in Erie and come into the island area around Port Clinton and then right down that neck of the woods. But we end up having to target a lot of rocky reef structures. And then sometimes the water goes from 80 feet all the way up to 20 feet to 15 feet, wherever these fish are spawning. The favorite out there is to come up with a stand-up jig that cuts the water. And that's what they've done here. They've created a stand-up type jig, hair dressed, and it's narrow on the side so it cuts the water, so if you're cutting down to 80 feet you can get down there fast because of the waves. We dress them up with a rubber paddle tail, and what I like to do is, like most people, is put a stinger on because these fish are just nipping. So what we do with the stinger, instead of just sticking a standard stinger up on top and pulling along and letting all the debris get hung up in that, what I like to do is roll that stinger around and face them in, pointing backwards and down. And what that'll allow it to do is all the debris will slide over. When a walleye hits and attacks, they chomp, they bite on. If they bite short, they'll bite into that stinger, and what that stinger will do is it'll pull out of there and roll forward, and that's where you'll have the advantage to set the hook and drive it home on them. So that's a nice little extra pro tip there. And what we have to do now is we have to step ourselves in the next phase. A lot of these fish aren't going to be on the bottom. They're going to be suspended up. And that's where we're going to go with a 1.5 foot leader. So then that way our jig can hit the bottom of the reefs and our floater will be up here high and top. And you'll actually hang back. So as you bounce and move your jig, it'll slowly pull your floater up and down with it. Any suspended walleyes or pushed up walleyes from all the male fish spawning on the bottom will push the female walleyes up a little higher in the column, and then this jig here will present itself right on that fish's nose. And all it is a styrofoam floater, standard float jig. I like to use a pretty good size hook on there. Throw a Mr. Twister tail on. As you can see, the method works. They go through a lot of twister tails. You're going to have a surplus. The water's usually dingy. We like bright colors. My light blues have a little bit of glow to them. They can be darker purples work good on the bottom, but once you leave the bottom, get yourself into something bright and fluorescent that all the fish can see and get at. And basically guys, tie her on and let's go catch some big walleyes.